So one thing I heard someone say, and it was very not discouraging to me because I know that there are different people. But I was talking to someone, they're like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. You know, all the young adults, Christian or not, they're all doing drugs. Young adults, Christian or not, they're all having sex. Young adults, Christian or not, they're all going to the bars on weekends. And I said, I don't like that you said that because I know that God is raising up a generation to set the standard. Not a generation to just fall behind whatever the world's doing, but I know that he's raising up a generation to set that standard, that makes that choice that says, I'm not going to be like the world. I'm not going to be just like everyone else. I'm not going to do the things that they do just because it's cool. I'm not going to do the things that they do just because I know that someone else did it and now they're a pastor, so I can do that and once again regain my salvation a few years down the road. But God is raising up that generation to set that standard, a generation who can say, no, I'm not going to follow the world, but I'm going to follow the word of God because I know that's what God has spoken over my life, and I know that is who he has called all of you to be. And I'm really excited about it because I know that as young adults, we can make the choice to be different. We may have made bad choices in the past, but they aren't going to dictate who we are today, and they're not going to dictate our future. But we can be that light in a dark world. We can be the light that God has called each and every one of us to be. In Philippians 2:12 it says, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. One thing that if you'll notice, I've been just praying this over just my life personally, my family's life, the Garza household, if you will, that everything that we do and everything that we say, I want it to be Jesus. I don't want to make choices on my own. I don't want to do things on my own because I feel like doing it or I got swept up in the moment. But I really want to know who Jesus is, for who he is, and start thinking about all the choices that I make, all the things that I say. And with that, I said, you know what? I want to do what Jesus does. What does that mean? I said, I'm going to get a bracelet to remind me, what would Jesus do? Now, how many of you were actually young and old enough to wear a What Would Jesus bracelet when they were actually popular? Because I was going to say, I was like 11. I was 11, so if you're under 20, it wasn't, I was sixth grade for sure. For sure. They were cool in high school. You were a little bit behind the trend. They came back. John, what year do you say? Middle school. We'll Google it. We'll Google it after. Okay, anywho. It's funny because I just thought they were so cool. I just remember specifically wearing it to Camp Rock. So that's why I know that I was in middle school, because in high school our church started our own camp. But I remember wearing this bracelet and they became so popular. Like everywhere you went, people were wearing these Wwjd bracelets and you just felt cool wearing it. And as I walked around, even being in middle school, I thought, do people even know why they're wearing these bracelets? And then within our church, what became really cool was if you got a miracle cloth from Mama Jean and you tied it around your WWJD bracelet. Did anyone do that? Jessica did. I know your wife did. Dude, this is back in middle school, I'm telling you. Like her little rainbow one. I was like, I know the exact color that I had, but I thought, you know what, I don't care if they're popular or not. I need a reminder, again, in everything that I do, everything that I say, what would Jesus do? And this verse points out, because this is one thing. This verse points out that it says not only in my presence, right? But it says when you're away from me. Because a lot of times what happens is we're one person in one situation, and then when we go to a different situation, or another person. I always like the song that we said, to do church and walk away. I'm not satisfied doing church and walking away, because sometimes we do church on Sunday and then who we are on Monday is a different person. Maybe on Sunday you become Christian Ashley, and then on Saturday you become clubbing Ashley, or whatever it is, the popular thing to do these days. But we kind of, within our different situations, want to change who we are depending on who we're with, or let people see one layer of who we are, but we don't let them see the other layer of who we are. And the funny thing is because everything now in my house revolves around children's stuff. But it reminded me of this song that, oh my gosh, Lael, you always say, like, I'm not going to let my kid do that when I have kids, and you probably will let your kid do that. And one thing that I wasn't going to let my kid do was watch TV, and now the TV is on all the time with a show called Little Baby Bum. And if you've been to my house, you know, but there's this one song, and it's funny because it's not just a Little Baby Bum song, but it's just a kid song, but it says, Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa. Does anyone know it? Okay, then I'll sing it for you. It says, Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa, eating sugar, no, Papa. Are you lying? No, Papa. Open your mouth, ah, ah, ah. And when he opens his mouth, he has sugar in his mouth. So the whole video is this little tiny baby sneaking into the cabinet and grabbing a cube of sugar or a spoonful of sugar, and he's eating the sugar. And the dad's asking him, hey, what are you doing? Are you eating sugar? And he says, no. And he's almost looks at his dad why would you even ask me if I'm eating sugar? So when the dad says, open your mouth, and he's he has this mouth full of sugar. But it's interesting because that reminded me so many times of people, because we want to say that we're one way. Are you this way? No, I'm not like that. No, I don't gossip, or no, I don't do that. No, I don't drink. I don't have sex, or I don't do that. And then you peel back one layer, and then another layer, and another layer, and we find out who we really are and the motives behind what we do. But again, in this verse it says, you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence. That's who we need to be. It says, being Jesus. That's not when you just choose to be Jesus. Oh, I want to be Jesus in this situation with this group of friends, but I don't want to be Jesus in this situation. I want to be Jesus in this situation, but this situation, you are really on my nerves. So I know Jesus wouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it to you anyway because you're really ticking me off, right? And we kind of get heated in the moment and decide in the moment we want to do something else, even though we know it's not something that we're supposed to be doing. So we have to choose to be Jesus in every situation that we go through, every single area of life, every single day. And when people see the real you, right, I always say, God sees everything that we do. But for some reason, even though we know he sees everything that we do, when we're showering, we're not thinking Jesus is looking at me right now, right? That'd be awkward. But honestly, he sees everything that we do. If someone could get into your life and really know your deepest thoughts, what you are doing in the dark, what you are doing after everyone goes to bed, what you are thinking when no one's around or when no one can see into your mind, who are you? Are you acting like Jesus? Are you speaking like Jesus? Are you thinking like Jesus? Because that's who we need to be, is Jesus. In Philippians 2:14-15, it says, do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless, children of God without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. I love this verse, but I will be honest. I'm the person that tends to be on the negative side. And it's something that I've been working on since the first moment my mom called me a pessimist. I was probably one. No, I'm just kidding. It's easy for me to look on the negative side of things. It's easy for me to see the bad side, and I always know that I constantly, and I wouldn't say that I'm like that anymore, but I know that's my natural instinct to kind of be that way. But I love this verse because it says, do all things without complaining. That's something that I constantly have to remind myself of, is not to complain, not to think of the negative things. And it says without disputing, all these different things. are interesting because it says do all things without complaining. It doesn't say do this project over here and be happy about it and be joyful about it and love it. But then when it comes to this situation over here, it's okay. Just complain, be angry, cause division. It doesn't say that, right? It says do all things without complaining and disputing. And as I was reading this verse, I was thinking, most people don't set out in life to like do a bad job, right? Unless you're trying to like sabotage someone. I wouldn't say most people get up in the morning and be like, I'm gonna look like crap today. That's my goal in life, to wear the worst outfit possible, to do my makeup as horrible as possible, and to walk out into the world and just look like crap. That's my goal. I doubt anyone wakes up and thinks like that. Or I'm gonna go to school and I'm just gonna, on purpose, A, B, C, D. I'm gonna mark D on every single thing just because I just purposefully want to fail this test. And unless there's like a bell curve and that's why you wanna like fail it. You know what I'm saying? But in general, most people don't set out to be crappy. Most people don't set out to do a bad job. When we start the ministry of 412, I don't set out to say, I'm gonna start a ministry. What would young adults hate? Okay, young adults would hate this. Perfect, let's do it. I think young adults really hate this. Oh, perfect, let's do this. You know what? The topic young adults are really gonna hate, I'm gonna talk about that on Sunday night. When we think about youth camp, right? We don't say, man, I'm gonna charge these kids all this money and I'm gonna take them 2 hours away and give them the worst time of their life. That's what I wanna do with youth camp, right? How many of you know we don't typically set out to plan a bad day for someone? I look at different things. I might not maybe like the clothing store that someone else likes, or I might go into a store and think, I don't like any of these clothes, but I doubt the purpose in the clothing store's mind was, I'm gonna make a bunch of clothes that Ashley hates. I'm sure they're targeting a certain audience, right? But what we find ourselves doing sometimes is looking at things that people do, looking at things that churches do, and we find ourselves complaining about it. Well, if they only would do this, if they would only do this, and this, and what happens is when we start complaining about all these things, negativity sets into us, sets into our heart, it sets into our minds, and when we become negative, when we have that complaining as part of our life, it gets into our lives and not just affects the area of I'm complaining about church, but now I'm complaining about church and it got into my life and I'm walking outside of church and I find myself being negative about this area of my life. I find myself being negative about relationships. I find myself being negative with my family, with my job, with my school. So we have to realize that this complaining thing where it says do all things without complaining, we can't just skim over a verse like this and see it as not important, but realize that we can't complain in our everyday life because obviously there's a reason, because it gets into us and it sets the wrong tone for our heart. If we're going to be that light in the darkness, right? If we're gonna go and say, okay, it says in this wicked and perverse generation, I wanna call you guys to be the light. Okay, God, I'm gonna be the light, right? But then I'm gonna walk into the darkness and be like, I know that song did suck this morning. I don't even know what's wrong with that worship leader's voice, but man, she sounds like a man, right? Sorry, I can't seem to get my voice back for some reason. I just do this. Come on, sing it out. Don't listen to the audio feed of my I'm just kidding. Okay, so anyway, right? If we're gonna be light in the darkness, we can't go into the darkness and just start acting the way that they act. We can't get on the complaining bandwagon, right? We have to be light in the darkness. For us to be light in the darkness, in the midst of this wicked and perverse generation, we have to be different. We have to be that light, right? There was a beautiful, beautiful sunset out there. I don't know anyone who could walk out the front doors of the district and be like, that is the ugliest thing that I have ever seen. There's something so beautiful about a sunrise, a sunset. There's something so beautiful about seeing that light in the darkness, and that's what we need to be in this world, is we have to be that light in the darkness. Pastor Lee this week was coming, he was talking about Christians who want to be light in the darkness. So what they do is they take the pickets, right? And they stand out and they march in front of whatever thing that they don't like. And he said that he went in front of, I think it was like a bar or something, and this guy was picketing outside saying like, you guys are all going to hell, basically saying this with the picket or whatever it's called. Isn't it called picketing? Yeah, okay. And he was basically saying, I just want to talk to this guy and, ask him a couple questions. So we asked the guy, he says, hey man, how long have you been doing that in front of this bar? And he said, I've been doing this 20 years. And he said, how many people have you led to the Lord? He said, absolutely none, right? If we want to be the light in the darkness, not only can we not act like the dark, we have to be that light, but we have to go about the right way. I don't know one story in the Bible where Jesus is walking through and he's just like, you're a sinner, get the heck away from me. Bye. I didn't see Jesus picketing outside of, like, oh, these people are sinning. It says he ate with the sinners. We have to be like Jesus. We can't cause disputes. We can't go around complaining, but we really need to be that light in the darkness. We need to show the world love because that's who we need. Now, I'm going to point out love does not mean accepting everything that we do. They do. Right? But we need to show them love. And to show them love, we need to show them Jesus with every single part of who we are. That means being Jesus in everything we do and everything that we say. So if we're acting the same way as the world, if we're getting caught up in that darkness, how are we being the light? We have to be the light in a dark place. In 1 Peter 4:1-3, it says, therefore, since Christ suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same mind. For he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh for the lust of men, but for the will of God. For we have spent enough of our past lifetime in doing the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lewdness, lust, drunkenness, revelries, drinking party, and abominable idolatries. To be like Jesus, we can't live like we used to live. We can't think like we used to think. We can't have mindsets like we used to have mindsets. And we shouldn't even desire those same things that we used to desire. And you may be thinking, but I've been a Christian my whole life. So have I. But I will tell you that I had desires for my life without talking to the Lord about them. I don't know anyone who doesn't come up with a plan for their life at a very young age. But what happens sometimes is we come up with this plan for our life. And I remember specifically I don't even know why, but it was like chemistry class, chemistry or biology, because we were in the biology lab. And I remember specifically talking about this, and they asked us, how old does everyone want to be when they're married? And I'm like the first one to raise my hand. I'm like, 22. Why? I don't know, because that's a great age. It gives me enough time to be married before I have kids, and I'm going to be married when I'm 22, I'm going to have a kid when I'm 26, and I will be done having kids by the time I'm 30. Great plan, right? Except for I didn't get married till I'm 26. I didn't have my first kid till I'm 30. Then if I'm done going to have kids, if I said, I'm going to be done having kids by the time I'm 30, do I not have any more kids? I do. But what happens is we get so caught up on these plans that we have for our life, these desires that we want in our life. I mean, tell me, I want a legit raise of hands. How many of you came up with a plan for your life? It doesn't have to be like married kids. Obviously, that sometimes is a girly thing, but how many of you guys came up with a plan for your life? How many of you, is your life going exactly to what you had planned? Now think to yourself, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you had a hard time with that? If something didn't necessarily go the way that you wanted it to go, we get, oh my gosh, like, what's going on in my life? Why isn't this happening in my life? Because we have to realize that to live the life that God wants of us, we have to let go of the past. It means giving every single part of us to him. Our hearts, our bodies, our strength, all of it belongs to him. And it's then when we can hand all that over to him that everything in our life will actually become about him if we surrender ourselves. So the question needs to be, God, I no longer want those desires of my heart to be so in the first place of everything that I want and I desire. But Lord, what is your desire for my life? I was saying this morning how we sing a song that says, Lord, do what you want to. But typically when he asks us something, Ashley, I want you to do this, it's like, well, I meant when I said do what you want to, I really meant this over here, like, I need you to give me this, or Lord, I need you to work this situation out. I wasn't really meaning do what you want to. But that's the kind of people that we need to be that says, Lord, in every single part of my life, Lord, do what you want to. And the biggest question is, Lord, what is your will for my life? He created us from the very beginning. He knew us. He formed us. He thought of us before the world was even formed. He created us for something. So the question needs to be, Lord, what is your will for my life? And it means up giving every single area to the Lord to say, Lord, I will. If you need me to go somewhere, God, I will go. Lord, if you need me to do something, Lord, I will do that. It means, Lord, if you want me to reach out to this person, oh, Lord, I will. I might not be comfortable doing it, but Lord, I will. How many of you guys have been through a situation where the Lord has asked you to do something and you were not comfortable with doing it? But all we need to say is, Lord, I will. To walk in his will, we need to say, God, I'm ready. And Lord, I will. 1 Timothy 4:12, let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, conduct, love, spirit, faith, purity. I always like to touch on this verse because it is our scripture. It's our verse. It's 4:12, what 4:12 means. And I love when people say, why is the name of your ministry 4:12? And I can say it's 1 Timothy 4:12 because we are called to be examples in word, conduct, love, spirit, faith, and purity. That does not mean you get to choose. It's not A, B, C. It's D. It's all of the above, right? So don't try going, I'm going to be an example. Word, man. I'm not going to gossip anymore, but I'm in a relationship with a really hot guy. So Lord, be an example in purity is not for me. Or whatever it may be. It's not a selection. You don't get to go to the buffet and pick word, conduct, love, spirit, faith, or purity. But we're called to be examples in word, conduct, love, spirit, faith, and purity. To be as Jesus is. To be who he's called us to be, we have to be an example in all of those areas and realize that every single area matters. There's not one that matters more than the other. Oh man, help my friend over here. She is sinning. She's doing this. And I was like, oh, but I thought you were doing, I know, but I know that I got my own problems, but she is, I've heard that before. We have to be an example in all those areas and realize that every single one of those areas matter. How we live matters. Because we live in a world where it doesn't matter how you live. Be whoever you want to be. No matter the cost. No matter the people around you who it impacts. No matter if it's right or wrong. Just be who you want to be because how you live does not matter anymore when you walk in the world, when you walk in the darkness. But we have to realize that how we live actually matters and it really does have an impact. I love that. It's not a slogan that we just sat down and was like, ooh, what would be a cool slogan? 4:12, how we live matters. That is not how the slogan was thought of. It was prayed about. It was like, Lord, what are you speaking to this generation? Lord, who have you called us to be? And you want to know who he's called us to be? A people whose lives matter. A people who, when they make the choices that they make, it matters. When the words that they say actually matter. That's who he has called us to live. How we live matters. Can I have the musicians come forward tonight? This last scripture I have for you is Philippians 1:9-11. And this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in knowledge and all discernment, that you may approve the things that are excellent, that you may be sincere without offense till the day of Christ, and being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. It says, in all discernment, we have to know who we are. We have to know who God has called us to be. And Jesus says, I have came to live inside of you. I have given you the Holy Spirit, a helper who lives inside of you. If you want to have discernment, look inside because he's inside of us. And that's who and how we know how to live our lives. I have over this. Know what Jesus would do. Know Wwjd. We have to know that we know that we know in every situation, what is it that Jesus would do? And if we want to know what Jesus would do, how many of you know if you were in a situation, you were like, what would Ashley do? The people who are probably going to know what I would do are the people who spend the most time with me. If you don't spend a lot of time with me, you're probably not going to know if I would pick A or B, right? So if we're supposed to live this life, if we get to live a life like Jesus, we have to know him. We have to spend time with him. And not only spend time with him, and I know that I've mentioned this before because a lot of times when we spend time with him, it's God, I need this, God, I need this, God, I need this, God, this situation, God, help me, help me, help me, help me, me. And if we want to get to know him, we need to let him speak to us. We need to let him reveal himself to us in that new way, in that fresh way. And it says that you may approve the things that are excellent. How to talk to people, how to treat people, how to respond to people. Not everyone in life is going to agree with what we have to say, right? But if we constantly are being this light in the darkness, and we go into the darkness and just say, shame on you, you're horrible, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. Bye, don't even hang out with me because you're darkness and I'm light. You're oil and I'm water. We don't mix, right? We can't be that kind of people. We have to be the light in the darkness, but being the light in the darkness means not getting caught up in what they do, not getting caught up in the arguments that they want to make, but taking a stand for what we believe and showing them who Jesus is on this earth. And the very first point that I made was we don't have to be that generation. These people in this room right now, we do not have to be the people who fall into who Christian or not, I know they're doing this. Christian or not, I know they're sinning. Christian or not, I know they're leaving 412 and making bad choices. And today's the day that you can make that choice. I don't care what you did yesterday. I don't care what you did before you walked into this building today. What I care about is the here and now and the choices that you're going to make from now on. Are you going to live a life that says, what would Jesus do in this situation? And not only in this situation, but every single situation I go through, every single hour of every single day. Lord, I want to be you on the earth. God, I want to be the light in the darkness. God, I want to know you so I can live a life that you approve of. God, I want to know you so I can become everything that you called me to be. If you guys could just stand with me tonight.